On this edition of The Fifth Estate, did a neighbor's argument over a road in Dominica lead to this?
Quebec new media entrepreneur and philanthropist Daniel Langlois is believed to have been found dead along with his partner.
I told everyone it was them, but no, that's impossible. Impossible. It can't be them.
Daniel Langlois and his partner Dominique Marchand were shot, burned, and left on the side of the road.
Daniel and Dominique, they have been all to me. Not only me, everybody.
Their relationship with their neighbors was fraught, deteriorating to the point of open hostility and even murder, according to prosecutors. One of those neighbors has been charged and is in jail awaiting trial.
I know he's innocent, and that's a clear case.
A case surrounded in mystery and the surprising links to Dominica's passport, politics, and international criminals.
Oh, here's a sanctioned Russian oligarch. Here's a war criminal. Here's a guy who was sanctioned for smuggling blood gold out of Congo.
All of which brings us to ask some uneasy questions. We just want to know why you acted as a safety for Mr. Lehrer. I'm Marie-Maud Denis, host of Radio-Canada's investigative program Enquête, and this is The Fifth Estate. Normand Langlois and his partner Sylvie had for years made Dominique a home. They had never expected nor wanted to return under these circumstances. Normand is Daniel Langlois' little brother. They came back last June to settle the estate, in particular the Colibri Ridge Hotel.
Là, on est comme nulle part, mais quand t'arrives...
You feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. But when you get to Colibri, with the sea views and the island of Martinique in the distance,
Sur la Martinique,
it's so beautiful.
c'est tellement beau, là.
Dominica is a small island nation of 70,000 people nestled between Guadeloupe and Martinique. Now, Normand and Sylvie are back to pick up the pieces.
On a un hôtel à opérer. On veut que ça fonctionne.
We have a hotel to run. We want it to work.
Il y a des emplois en jeu.
There are jobs at stake.
C'est énorme, en tout cas.
It's huge.
They never thought they would ever have to run a hotel, never imagined their brother and sister-in-law would be killed so close to home. We've come with them on this trip to better understand why those close to Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand worry the accused will never face trial.
Fait qu'on approche du lieu de l'incident.
We're getting close to the scene. Okay, the next curve.
C'est là qu'il y a eu la... qu'ils ont fait l'embûche.
That's where they set up the ambush. They were coming in from the village, and it's here where they blocked the road. That's where it happened. That's where they went to burn the car.
C'est là qu'ils sont allés brûler la voiture.
Daniel Langlois was raised in a modest family in the Laurentians in western Quebec. As an adult, he became a fixture of Montreal's culture scene. But his international claim to fame was his 3D animation software that transformed Hollywood.
Softimage 3D will allow us to build any kind of model that we like and then assign it to this kind of skeleton.
He started off small in the 1980s, working with the National Film Board. He developed a software that helped create this, a first of its kind, a 3D animated humanoid.
Hey, let's go crazy.
He perfected his computer code over the next 2 decades, and with that, he helped create some monster Hollywood hits, like Jurassic Park, The Matrix, and Titanic. His company, Softimage, grew and grew until...
Softimage, a company he began 8 years ago, sold for $130 million US.
Sold to Microsoft and Bill Gates.
The goal is effectively to move to the mass market.
Il a fait des millions avec ça, là. Il a fait beaucoup d'argent.
He made millions on that sale, a lot of money. And that money allowed him to do other things.
Lui a permis de faire autre chose.
Dominique Marchand, Langlois' partner, grew up in Montreal until being accepted to Harvard to study Mandarin. Her life changed forever when she answered a want ad at Softimage as Langlois' secretary. Céline Casey was Dominique's friend since high school.
Je pense que Daniel et Dominique vont très bien ensemble.
I think Danielle and Dominique are a great match. They complement each other so well.
The Langlois created a foundation that supports the arts, humanities, and the environment. Which brings us back here to Dominica and the couple's latest and last dream project, Colibri Ridge.
À un moment donné, on a su que là, il était en projet.
Eventually, we learned he had a plan to build a hotel in Dominica.
Acheter des terrains.
He had bought land.
Daniel Langlois asked his little brother Normand to come join him to supervise some of the construction. What should have been a project lasting just a few years turned into 17.
Colibri l'a dessiné de A à Z.
Daniel designed it all, down to the smallest detail. Nothing was neglected. Each stone, each tile was in his plans.
Chaque pierre, chaque tuile était toujours dans ses dessins.
Living truly off-grid, without compromise.
Daniel Langlois, in his own words, described his vision in this promotional video.
The land started to basically talk to me. The angle of the mountain, where the sun would set, where the sundown would come, all of that influenced the way the buildings are made, to take advantage of their location, to be better aligned with the sun.
On est sur une crête à l'intérieur d'un ancien volcan.
We are on a ridge inside an ancient volcano. So Daniel had to follow the curve of the ridge, follow the morphology of it. He had to orient the buildings with the sun, with the solar panels, and it all melded into the environment.
Il voyait loin d'avance.
He was a visionary.
Tout ce qui est Colibri Ridge, pour moi, toute l'ambiance.
Everything at Colibri Ridge. The whole atmosphere, the people working, the professionalism.
Le professionnalisme des gens.
For me, all of that is Dominique.
C'est Dominique pour moi.
The hotel finally opened in the fall of 2022. Dominique Marchand and Daniel Langlois would not enjoy it for long.
That's why I work, to cook for them, right in there.
Maggie Fontaine was the couple's private chef, preparing meals for them to take back to their apartment at Colibri Ridge.
I know Daniel and Dominique a long time. I could picture Dominique with that long hair, would step in the kitchen. She would say, "Hello, Maggie Dodo." That's how she used to call me.
Céline Casey had a standing lunch date every Friday with Dominique. But on one of those Fridays, something wasn't right.
C'est vraiment un moment privilégié.
It's really a special moment for me. I looked forward to my Fridays.
Et ce vendredi-là, j'ai pas vu la voiture de Daniel.
And then on that Friday, I didn't see Danielle's car. Danielle and Dominique are very discreet. They go about their business on their own.
Donc, c'était pas quelque chose qui était anormal de pas voir la voiture.
So it wasn't unusual not to see their car. But then some managers came over and said, "Listen, we haven't seen them all morning. Something's going on."
Fait qu'il y a quelque chose qui se passe.
My phone rang. And Maliva asked me, "Maggie, did you see Daniel and Dominique?" Then I told her no.
Maleva is the hotel's general manager.
Puis Maleva,
Then Maliva said, "That's not normal."
Générale, elle dit, "Ah non, Céline, c'est pas normal." Donc, j'ai dit, bon, OK.
So I said, "Okay, we'll send cars. 3-4 people, 3-4 cars to go search.
Qu'on se rejoint dans 10 minutes.
And we'll meet up in 10 minutes." When they got back, they said they couldn't find them anywhere. There's no car, there's nothing.
Ils sont pas nulle part, il n'y a pas de voiture, il n'y a pas rien.
Then I called back Petite Colibri. And I asked them to go in Daniel's and Dominique's fridge where they kept their meals. See if their meal, if they came up with their stuff.
Worried, Maggie calls Normand in Montreal.
I said, no, man, don't be scared. But then I cried in here, and he said, what, Maggie, what happened? It's like I didn't have no control over myself. So I had to tell him, be strong. Daniel and Dominique, we are not seeing them from since Thursday when they came down for their meal.
J'ai essayé d'appeler Daniel.
So I tried to call Danielle. I sent emails. I said, Danielle, get in touch with us. Danielle never lost touch. For Danielle not to communicate for 2 hours was virtually impossible.
Que Daniel ne communique pas pendant 2 heures, c'était presque impossible.
My mom called me and told me they got a vehicle burned in the way to go to Gallo, the back road, and it have 2 people on board.
Puis là, Maëva est arrivée sur l'entrefait.
Then Maëva arrived and said, look, they just found a burnt car in Gallion. Then she said, I'm sure it's them. I'm sure. I was shocked.
Voyons donc. On est parti.
We went to Gallion and the car was so burnt.
La voiture était tellement calcinée.
You couldn't see inside. It was just a carcass.
On voyait pas l'intérieur, c'était qu'une carcasse.
On n'a à peu près plus de doute.
We had almost no doubt. How it happened, we couldn't say. That it was them, for us, it was obvious.
Ça devenait une évidence.
I had the great sense, the feeling it was there. And it was there for sure. It was there.
Just a few days later, on December 6th, 2 men were arrested and charged with their murders. Coming up, our investigation turns to neighborly relations gone very sour.
On my property. You get back in your vehicle.
Our investigation in Dominica takes an unusual turn. Jonathan Lehrer and Robert Snyder were charged with the murders of Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand on December 6th, 5 days after their bodies were found. The accused are awaiting trial in jail.
This is the maison.
With my colleague Yannick Dumont-Baron, we've been invited to visit Lehrer's estate by a public relations firm they hired.
So, should I say welcome? Welcome to Wacotlet.
Kern Toussaint is an employee tasked with showing us around. He says the historic estate welcomed cruise passengers on day trips.
We have different tours. We have, first and foremost, our chocolate tour. We also do chocolate here.
This is partly a cocoa plantation. Jonathan Lehrer and his wife, Victoria, guided tourists through the process of making chocolate.
It's maybe like a group of 20 people at once. We place the chairs, we have refreshments.
Then we notice behind some trees what looks like a building under construction.
This is Jonathan's project.
And what's the project?
Well, we call it the Mariana building.
Mariana?
Yes. It's an ongoing project, it's not finished.
Yeah.
And this is just one of what he intended to build. Just one.
But that would be places where people could stay?
Yes, yes.
A friend of the Lehrers told us Jonathan Lehrer is a survivalist. His company's website offers an investment in these shelters in the event of a natural disaster or social upheaval. This video shows a passage under the property filled with transport containers.
That's a storeroom.
Oh, that's a storing room.
That's a storing room. That's what it is.
Okay.
For food.
Okay, so there's food in the container.
Yes.
Okay. Did Mr. Lehrer have firearms?
He carried a firearm, yes.
He carried with him?
It's a licensed firearm.
Okay. Is it legal to carry a firearm?
It's legal as long as you're on property. It's legal to carry a firearm on your property.
But it's not because Jonathan Lehrer carried a gun that made him a suspect. In fact, when the Lehrers first arrived, relations were very cordial, neighborly, says Normand Langlois.
Il est arrivé en 2012.
He arrived in early 2012, I think.
On est parti, nous quatre.
Daniel, Dominique, Sylvie, and I went to see him on his property. We went to say hello.
Et lui dire bonjour.
The Lehrer and Langlois properties border each other.
Et ça a duré pendant probablement.
And for at least 2 years, we had a relatively good relationship.
On se croisait, on voyait ses enfants.
We saw each other, we saw his children.
Il nous avait dit.
But all that changed in 2014. Relations with Jonathan Lehrer became strained to the point where Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand started filming their encounters with a dash cam. Because the only road to get to Colibri Ridge runs through the heart of the Lehrer's property, Bois Côtelette.
Du fait qu'on était sur un chantier.
Because we were building, there was a lot of material being transported. So there was definitely activity on that road.
Trucks, heavy equipment, buses, any type of vehicle you could think of. Trailer trucks, they would all pass right there.
That doesn't belong here. You're damaging this. Tell him to turn around.
Jonathan, lui, il prétendait tout le temps qu'on endommageait.
Jonathan claimed we were damaging his buildings, that we were damaging the ruins on his site. Then he tried as hard as he could to catch us in the act.
C'est jamais arrivé.
It never happened. It was tight, it was difficult, but we did it.
I keep looking and I don't see any marks of paint or any sign of damages, right?
No. It's just a fear of that happening. And I've never seen with my 2 eyes anyone, but accidents do happen.
What's the issue? Away from here. Don't be talking to me on my property. Get back in your vehicle.
C'est vite devenu infernal.
It quickly became hellish.
C'est un problème quotidien.
It was a daily problem, whether it was us or our employees.
Lehrer said to me, "You have to understand, Céline, we're conducting tours and you drive right through." I said I understood, but that's the road, you know?
You see what she's doing? You see what she's fucking doing?
What am I doing? What am I doing?
What the people?
Jonathan Lehrer's wife, Victoria, also got upset at people using the road.
You perjured yourself, you lied!
Victoria Lehrer had agreed to give us an interview but changed her mind. According to the family spokesperson, these images are taken out of context. But we found others. Even hikers weren't spared.
Keep walking! Keep walking!
There were dogs jumping on the car. It was aggressive, very aggressive.
The dogs are protective over the property and also Mr. Lehrer. For instance, if the dog is loose and you try to, it will attack you.
Many families from the constituency who use that road to walk, exercise, had a lot of difficulties because they have a lot of dogs. They would come out and scare people. So we had a lot of challenges.
Denise Charles was a friend of the couple who was killed. She's also Dominica's Minister of Tourism. She represents the constituency where Daniel Langlois and Jonathan Lehrer's properties are located. She brought them all together to mediate the dispute, twice, to no avail.
We agreed at the meeting that we were going to engage the Ministry of Public Works to help us, to do a survey of the area and to see where we could have an alternative road to Daniel's property. Jonathan went ahead and just decided he was cutting another road.
Once Lehrer had built the new road, he blocked the old one with boulders, making it impassable. But the new road wasn't safe.
Once you got to the top, and if your vehicle was even a little long, you couldn't make the turn. It was on the side of a cliff built on brittle rock, so that certainly couldn't work.
Donc, ça, c'est sûr que ça n'a pas fonctionné. En fait, on n'a pas eu le choix de la prendre parce qu'il avait mis des grosses roches.
We didn't have a choice because he had put large rocks in the way. The only way we could pass was to use that road. That road wasn't safe.
C'était une route qui n'était pas sécuritaire.
The dispute boils down to this. The Lehrers say the main road is private. It's their home, they can do what they like. The Langlois say the road is public. has existed for a century. They cannot be denied access. So a few days after the road was blocked, they sought and got court orders to have the road cleared of obstructions.
There were opportunities to resolve the matter amicably, but Jonathan was not interested in that. He wanted to do his own thing.
To settle the matter, in 2018, Daniel Langlois asked the courts to intervene and rule once and for all.
Daniel's stance was always avoid confusion. Let's be peaceful. Let's avoid noise. He did not aggravate the situation. He did not seek any problems. I feel that Jonathan was more the aggressor because he constantly would say one thing and do another. Daniel, on the other hand, was a man of his word.
The legal process has dragged on for 6 years. There was still no ruling when Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand were killed. For Normand Langlois, it's this dispute, no question, that led to their death.
Avec tout ce qu'on avait vécu à travers les années,
with everything that we'd been through these last few years,
il n'y avait pas le moindre doute.
There isn't a shadow of a doubt.
That certainty is a sentiment shared by many on the island. When we come back,
I know he's innocent, and that's a clear case.
We go to the prison where the accused are awaiting trial. Jonathan Lehrer says he's willing to talk to us. We're here at Stock Farm, a suburb of Dominica's capital, Roseau. This is where the National Prison is located, where Jonathan Lehrer has been awaiting trial since December. His lawyer and his publicist both assured us that he has no objection to speaking to us, if we get permission from the prison warden. Thank you.
No problem.
Unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen on this trip. But Jonathan Lehrer's lawyer is also here. He just met his client, and his message to us is simple.
I know he's innocent, and that's a clear case. They're alleging that at a particular time, the both victims, or alleged victims, were killed. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're indicating what time they think it occurred.
Mm.
They're also disclosing to us documents and statement that says that the first time our client was seen at the area was 5 hours later.
So in other words, the prosecution so far cannot say where Mr. Lehrer was at the time.
And they're required to say, not us.
No, I get it. Okay.
They're required to say where he was.
Yet, this spring, investigators told the judge the evidence is overwhelming. Here's the most likely scenario, not yet tested in court, but based on what the family has learned from police and people at the scene. Maggie Fontaine remembers that day. It was Thursday, November 30th, 2023, the day before the bodies were discovered.
I think it was 3:44. I spoke to Dominique. So she told me, well, Daniel is just doing some work there. As soon as he's done, they will come down for the meal.
She was away, but she has a clear idea of the time Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand came to pick up the meals she had prepared for them.
I would suggest after 5 when they left there.
They headed back towards Colibri Ridge, but didn't drive for long. What they saw probably looked like what they had previously recorded on their dash cams. Here, on the infamous road through Bois Côtelette, Robert Snyder allegedly shot at Daniel Langlois, who then lost control of his SUV. Then, the shooter shot and killed Dominique Marchand. He then put Daniel's body in the back seat. One of the accused would have taken the wheel, turned the car around, and drove for a few minutes before turning left onto this path. They stopped a couple of 100 meters further. Céline Casey was told what happened next by officers at the scene.
Ils ont dit non, ça a tout été brûlé.
And they said everything burned. I asked, were there bodies? They said it didn't burn with gasoline, it burned with acid.
C'est complètement malade.
I thought, this is completely sick. You have to be sick to burn a car with acid? They said we can't identify anything on the bodies.
The accused allegedly pushed the SUV towards the left of the path, so it would roll down the ravine. But that's not what happened. The burning vehicle came to a stop here on the right. You can see the rocks are still covered in melted plastic. According to our information, the accused had to free the vehicle and push it back again towards the ravine. But instead of falling into the forest, it got caught on this tree. This theory of events could also explain the visible injuries on Robert Snyder as he left the courthouse a few days after the killings. Snyder's wife's Facebook profile paints a picture of a man a world away from such a violent crime. It portrays a family man, a mechanic, living in Tampa Bay, Florida, a football-playing son, a pharmacist wife. She told us he's not a hitman hired by Lehrer. Snyder was hired long-term to fix buses at the plantation. He had been there for months. That's at odds with what Kern Toussaint, who also works at the plantation, told us. He says that Robert Snyder had just arrived.
How long was he here for?
I can't remember the exact date he came. Only a week. Since before that whole incident, yes, so just a week. Maybe not even all that, maybe just a few days. Never met him before, didn't know who he was.
Remember those burns on Snyder's legs? Toussaint says those were from hot radiator fluid. That's also the explanation put forward by Snyder's defense.
This one over there, radiator, was a mess. I have no idea who he is. You know, so if he's been accused, if he's one of the accused, I cannot defend him.
But Toussaint will defend his boss.
This man is just, I would consider, you know, a very open and loving man. Mr. Lehrer is no murderer. Mr. Lehrer is no murderer. He was wrongfully accused and we stand by that.
Lennox Lawrence represents both Snyder and Lehrer. He didn't talk about Snyder much in our interview. He does go on about Lehrer's supposed prostate cancer.
We know with the state of his prostate condition right now, that we don't have the capability here of taking care of him properly.
Lawrence requested his client be released on bail in order to undergo treatment in the United States. He provided a medical report to back up his claim. A report the judge said was not compelling, providing no conclusive findings he has cancer, and that he would have the means to abscond if he was granted bail.
He did not do what he's alleged to have done.
Lawrence patiently answered all of our questions.
I have not seen the bodies. I have not seen the reports on the bodies.
But there's one question he didn't seem to appreciate, about this woman who was present at the bail hearing. She offered her building as a bond, a guarantee that Lehrer would not flee if he were released.
I have a question about Mrs. Rhoda Joseph. Why did she act as a surety, as a guarantee for Mr. Lehrer, as she is, I believe, high-ranking person in the government?
Why is that a question?
Well, one arm of the state is prosecuting Mr. Lehrer, and a civil servant is acting as a guarantee for him. Don't you see a question that can be raised?
No, I don't think that's a proper question at all. I don't understand the question or even why it would be asked.
When we come back, power, politics, and passports.
Dominica sold passports to criminals, politically exposed individuals, and money launderers. That's the big thing.
Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand's death were marked at a special ceremony in a space they had founded to help the creative community. And while people grieved in Montreal, in Dominica, some were already questioning links the accused, Jonathan Lehrer, had to the upper echelons of politics.
He was one of the minor players. Having said that, you don't even get to be a minor player in the passport program without having some connection to the government.
Zach Copeland and his team at the Organized Crime and Corruption Project had been following the trail of money launderers from Iran. And that trail led to surprising revelations, and right back here to Dominica.
The money launderers had been working through companies in Hong Kong that they based out of China, but all these companies were opened by Iranians with Dominica passports. And we thought that there might be a way to reverse engineer more Iranian money launderers by getting a full list of Dominica passport buyers. Once I obtained the list, I realized it was a much bigger story than just Iran.
Zach Copeland's team found an additional layer of suspected corruption leading to the very top of Dominica's government. Dominica is lush and beautiful, but it's also one of the poorest countries in the Caribbean. To make matters worse, its economy was crippled by Hurricane Maria in 2017. So, with few resources at its disposal, the government decided to sell the one thing the country has control over: citizenship. Thomson Fontaine is the leader of the main opposition party in Dominica. He says his country's passport comes with a major perk.
The overwhelming majority of persons seeking Dominican passports are persons who want visa-free access to Europe.
Copeland noticed the same thing as he was going through the list of Dominica's newest citizens.
Oh, here's a sanctioned Russian oligarch. Here's a war criminal. Here's a guy who was sanctioned for smuggling blood gold out of Congo. There's a lot more shady individuals than just Iranian money launderers.
This promotional video aimed at a Russian clientele promises confidentiality and never having to step foot in Dominica in order to become a citizen.
We had 8,000 names. We had several thousand Iranians. We had several thousand Iraqis. And then you would have other nationalities. We had about 600 Chinese. And you had 300 or 400 Russians. Dominica sold passports to criminals, politically exposed individuals, and money launderers. And that's the big thing.
We have lost a visa-free entry into the United Kingdom, something that we've enjoyed forever. And there is a risk now that the Europeans will follow suit. The Europeans have raised concerns very publicly about the due diligence that's been conducted.
Tourism Minister Denise Charles says her government has changed the rules in order to obtain citizenship. They're stricter now.
Areas where they felt we could strengthen, they made recommendations to us, and we've changed our legislation. For example, one of our laws, it was too easy for somebody to change their name. They made a recommendation, and that law was changed.
The program to buy citizenship is called Citizenship by Investment, CBI for short. Many countries offer similar programs, but starting at $100,000, Dominica's is one of the cheapest.
Currently, the CBI accounts for about 60% of government revenue. 60%. So it has surpassed even revenues from taxation.
The government designates a few business people as agents with the privilege of offering passports to foreigners.
Generally, the agents appear to be friends of government officials and friends of the program. And it's a very limited monopoly, I would say, of people who have the right to sell passports. You make a lot of money as an agent because people want these passports.
Who decides if you become an agent?
The Prime Minister. I mean, he's the one who makes that decision, no one else. It's in the hands of the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister is Roosevelt Skerrit. He has ruled the country for the last 20 years. He's no stranger to scandal. Several media investigations have linked him to corruption. But what does this all have to do with the killings? Jonathan Lehrer was a citizenship agent. with ties to the government and the Prime Minister. Lehrer's real estate project is one of the few approved by the Prime Minister himself. Invest in Bois-Côtelet and get citizenship.
He's one of only a few brokers who have the right to sell passports through real estate purchases.
And there's another problem with the program. The numbers don't add up.
If you make just an average count of the number of passports that have been issued, and you compare that to the revenues coming into the government treasury, it is clear that there is a disconnect.
There is no way the Dominican government's official budget numbers make any sense. And so basically what that means is money is missing from the official budget of the country.
We've estimated that about 2.4 billion US dollars would be what is at stake.
2.4 billion US dollars. But the minister says that's a misconception.
It's a very transparent process. Some people don't want the information. They prefer to keep it at a stage to create confusion and to spread misinformation about the program for their own intentions.
As we were leaving her offices, the minister said she would send us information that would clear everything up. We're still waiting. Lehrer's lawyer also stands by the program.
That statement has been made by certain political operatives on the island. And when they were pushed for evidence of that, there was no such evidence.
And he admits he too has connections to the program.
You're also a passport
agent. With a number of other persons.
Okay.
We begin to realize that Lehrer is well connected. Not only is he one of the select few who can sell citizenship, his lawyer is too, and not only that.
I am also the attorney of the Prime Minister, among a number of other persons.
And that's not all. He was also one of the Prime Minister's campaign organizers.
Vote for the Labour Party, vote for 5 more years, vote for Ruth Vescaret.
And there's Rhoda Joseph. She runs the government agency responsible for attracting foreign investment to the island. Remember, she offered, though unsuccessfully, her building as collateral for Jonathan Lehrer's release.
Hello, Madame Joseph. Hi, Yannick. I'm from Canada.
We asked Rhoda Joseph for an explanation.
But is it possible to talk to you some other time?
No.
I believe that is scandalous. I believe that is frankly unacceptable. When you have that sort of position in government, you ought to remove yourself from such matters and controversy. And I believe it casts a very unfavorable shadow.
Gabriel Christian is a lawyer from Dominica, now living in Washington, D.C. We talked to several expats like him, all dismayed by what's going on in their country.
The connection between the power of those who are appointed as agents for the government in this passport selling scheme has allowed for the growth of an arrogant oligarchy that's lawless, that has undermined the rule of law.
The justice system works. If it did not work, Mr. Lehrer would not be incarcerated. And if it did not work, there would not be directives on trial and denial of bail.
Last June, Normand Langlois, Sylvie Grenier, and Céline Casey met with police.
Aujourd'hui, on a réussi à avoir une entrevue avec l'enquêteur.
We met with the investigator who'd been on the case from the start.
Il nous a confirmé que les tests ADN avaient été faits.
He confirmed that DNA testing was done. However, they hadn't gotten the written report yet.
Ils auraient trouvé des balles sur le site, puis là, il y a des armes qui ont été saisies.
They found bullets at the scene, they seized weapons. They are trying to get ballistics analysis done on them. That report still hasn't been completed.
They are resigned to the fact that Dominican police aren't as well equipped as those in larger countries. That only adds to the uncertainty as to the outcome of the murder trial scheduled in 2025.
C'est là où on en est en ce moment.
That's where we are right now. We want it to progress, but it can't go any faster.
And remember the case before the courts about the status of the road? A few months after the death, the judge finally ruled. that road is indeed public. The judge didn't mince words describing Jonathan Lehrer. The court did not find the defendant to be a credible witness, nor his evidence reliable. His demeanor was cheeky, evasive, and morose. Despite that, Lehrer will appeal the decision, his lawyer told us.
The question is why. I think the big question still remains why. And people are saying, is this really just overruled?
And you know one thing? I am blaming the government too, because from day one, we up there and Daniel keep going with problem with that man for the road, which is not a public road. We didn't have peace.
Back in 2019, a dashcam recorded Daniel and Dominique trying to find a little levity in a difficult situation. A joke that rings hollow today.